Then ActionCom has one for you here, Paul. Asks, how can a piece of art be forgotten?
Well, I think that's actually one of the problems, is that every movie before 1980 is that the present generation knows nothing about it and has no interest in finding out about it.
I think there's a part of that. I think the other part is there's a lot of art that's just lost in general.
There's true, but let's say, you must have, Tom, someone's recommended something, and then you find joy in it. Like I told you about the Sandbaggers, and you went, wow, this is a very interesting piece, very interesting stuff.
Well, and that's the thing, is you're not wrong there. There's that part. But I'm talking
You're
about
interested. You're curious.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actual physical aspect of it, because you're right to a point, because before 1980, I think a lot of film and television studios didn't realize that they had things that could be reestablished again and again and again and again. So a lot of things were just tossed. They would just toss them. They physically tossed them out because they didn't have room for them, or whatever they do. Like famously Doctor Who episodes that were taped over because it was a lot cheaper to use the tape again than it was to fucking buy a new one. So like, yeah, in that case, a whole production would be lost because of that. So that's one way a lot of these things can happen, actually.
I found out that our 12-inch reels of our 120 Frantics radio shows.
Oh no, don't tell me.
We're going to be chucked.
Okay, good. You saved them.
I broke in the CBC at night and stole them.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. That is what we need to do. I'm not even kidding. Like sometimes we have to almost do those kind of things nowadays to save some of these things.
I hope they didn't hear me. There must be.
I think the statute of limitations is up on that at this point, and you have probably some kind of say over the master in some kind of form. So
yeah,
maybe along with the rest of your crew. But yeah,
that's fine.
I think you're clear on
come and get
him. Come and get him. You'll pry him from his cold dead hands. Quick, digitize them.
120 12-inch reel. It took up a
Do you have anything to actually play them on though?
We did at the time, and then we got them transferred over to.
Did you? Okay. Oh, okay. Good. Okay, I was going to say, as long as you got them transferred, that's a big thing. And preservation is another problem. ActionCom preservation, and this is where there's a lot of movies they're going back to now, and they're doing a lot of restorations on. They're starting to realize how bad a shape some of this shit's in.
Yep. And so, it's a horrible. I mean, they restored the Metropolis.
Yeah, they finally found some more of that, but I don't think they found the complete Metropolis yet.
I think they found enough pieces.
I've got the longest version there is available, but yeah.
Is that the one which had the Argentinian footage?
Yes. Yeah, added back in. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, doesn't have to be too much longer.
Yeah, I think there's just a few minutes more missing, but that's the thing is ActionCom. That's a great point. Is a lot of times they'll be like, well, we're missing X amount of this movie, and until somebody finds it in the garage, in their basement, in their attic, one of my favorite but sad stories I like to tell is, it's true though. I'm curious where New Line Cinema's situation is with a lot of their negatives and whatnots, because I can't remember the writer's name, and I really wish I did now, but he went by different names. I think Steve White or something like that was one of his writing names. But he was dying of cancer, and he was doing a revival screening of Critters, the 1986 film. And they couldn't find a decent reel. The only reel they had of the film was missing all of the critter shots.
Wow.
They couldn't figure it out. They're like, they're gone. Every shot, they're like, you're sitting there watching it, all of a sudden, gone. Shot's gone. Then it would jump back to the next scene where there's no critters. So like maybe that somebody did like a special effects thing, and maybe they just stole them for that reason. But at that time, that was the only print they had available. So he was devastated that he couldn't do this. So sadly, he passed away. And then a few months after he passed away, his friends and family were cleaning out all of his stuff. Lo and behold, way in the back end of one of his closets was all of those clips of the critter scenes that they were missing. He didn't even know he had them. And they don't know what he clipped them out for or asked for him for. Could have been whatever reason. He had forgotten, and that's how sometimes this shit's lost. Luckily, I think they do have the inner positive or the negative still, but it's one of those things where in some cases they don't have the negatives anymore of these things. Citizen Kane is one they had to take from different places to do the more recent restoration because they didn't have the negative anymore.
I saw Abel Gantz's Napoleon with Coppola's orchestra, not Francis, but the other Coppola.
Okay.
Playing live, 3-screen.
Oh wow.
Genius.
That's awesome.
It's a 3-4 hour film and silent film, but with orchestra.
Right.
And the film was recolored like it's a duotone. And they recreated it, and all I could do while I was watching it go, oh, that's where that camera move cliche came from. Oh, he invented that. Oh, he invented that move. I'm going, oh
see,
my
now
God.
that's funny because that's how I saw Citizen Kane for the first time. That's how I watched. Like I saw, like, oh, okay, I can see why now. You know, like I didn't see it that way, the way that as a movie the first time. I'm like, oh, I see the influence this movie had.
Yeah. Massive. That is a very good movie.
But Fatty, yeah, this is another thing. In 2008, Universal had a devastating fire.
Yep.
They lied to a lot of people, and they're feeling the repercussions of it to this day.
They lost the music too.
A lot of music was lost.
Was that part of the same thing? Because I know Universal Music.
It was all part of the same thing. They claimed at the time that all that was lost was some costumes, some minor props, and a few copies of music and movies. No. They found out it was a lot worse than that. It was
terrible.
It was negatives. It was a bunch of like you had a bunch of old blues labels that didn't exist anymore that were all conglomerated under Universal Music. So they had entire catalogs that were completely lost, completely wiped from existence.
And they were supposed to have everything backed up and at another location, and they were liars.
They did not.
Yep.
Now, luckily, some of the more modern important things, I guess, were off-site. I guess Elton John did manage to have some of his stuff off-site. Guns N' Roses, there's a bunch of arguments of whether or not, because there was a couple of theirs that were in that, but people were arguing about whether or not the original master tapes were used for the recent Appetite for Destruction re-release, and they said they were the original master tapes, so they're believing that those were kept off-site. Along with a lot of the other Geffen records acquirements under Universal. So that's the thing, is a couple of years back here before this fire happened, there used to be all these different music companies, and then they all conglomerated. So you basically had like 3 of them. There was like BMG and Universal and Warner Brothers, and BMG and Sony, I think, are together. So there's those 3 companies all together. They're the ones who own like 99% of all the music.
Right.
And so Universal had a buttload of this.
Oh yeah.
And then in this fire, we're learning now that a lot of these artists are going back. They're like, oh, I want to do a re-release of this album, and I want all the master tapes, and I want to get, the outtakes and shit. And they're like, yeah, we can't find it. Like, what do you mean you can't find it? Like, we don't know where it is. It might have been in that fire. So you've had a couple of artists now who are looking at and have actually filed lawsuits and shit like that for this whole thing. It has become a big deal. And this is something we actually covered a while back on Midnight's Edge After Dark. And I'm sure if there's ever any updates on it, we'll probably bring it up again. But that's another way that things are lost. Action Com, sadly, is just negligence, bullshit. You'd be surprised. And then the other version is there's copyright crap that gets in the way sometimes. Sometimes you never know who owns what. That's the other problem. There's arguments between who actually owns, because you'll have 3 producers who paid for it, and they'll be like, I own it. So there's a lot of that stuff. I guess that's a lot of problems with some states as well.
Luckily for us, nobody wants our old product, so there's no fighting.
I bet you we could get a lot of people who'd be interested.